I mean, now the really interesting thing, as far as like the bath thing, from my perspective, was there was a guy who was that talk about dynamics, because we're all talking about dynamics between ideas and individuals, etc.
Of course.
But there was a guy who presented there with the standard model and refuted dark matter, right? And there was kind of a cold reception for him, of course, because everyone is embracing, the generalized EU model, and so this is an interesting dynamic to look at. Both Ido and Richard brought this up.
Welcome to the July 15th edition of the Electric View. I'm Neil Thompson. Today we have David, Jim, Heather, and Robert. We're going to be discussing pulsars, the new radio picture of the center of our galaxy, and the weather on Mars and Earth. Please take a moment to like and subscribe below. Well, I wouldn't shut the door necessarily, but because a lot of times, especially when you're doing something controversial, like refuting dark matter, for example, no matter what, they're going to usually provide some evidence that's not that is missed, that's overlooked, and sometimes that evidence will illuminate an electrical connection that they don't even see, and that's like, for example, when people start, I can't go dark matter, but like if someone wanted to start refuting, say, for example, neutron stars or pulsars or something, and if you go, the conventional thing seems to work great, but once you start going into the details and realizing that pulsars can glitch, that they can suddenly, quote unquote, stop rotation for like a millisecond and then start up again. And that shouldn't happen. That can't happen because they're supposed to be spinning. They're supposed to be rotating. But if they were just some sort of electrical oscillation that's going ding, ding, wah, 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 like that, then yeah, they can just, hold the capacitance for one charge. Like the BJT did not go off. It did not drop down and, send its energy over to the next star or whatever. So all that that pulsing effect would occur because it would be I guess it would be called a asymmetrical plasma sheath. But anyway, long story short, those
it just stops.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like it skipped a beat.
Yeah.
But if it was a lighthouse, it can't skip a beat. You can't slow, because these things are neutron stars. They're supposed to be so friggin' dense, according to the conventional model, that they are indeed, and they have to be so dense because they spin so fast. Because they spin so fast.
According to fit the model.
To fit the model, exactly. Well, how do you get something turning 30,000 times a second without flying apart? If you spin the Earth 30,000 times a second, everything will go flying. Doesn't matter, It wouldn't stick to it. Now, if you had a neutron star, the reason neutron stars had to be made up is because they found a pulsar that's going 30,000 times a second. They were like, well, then this must be some strange matter. It has to be supernatural matter. It has to be made of pure neutrons. Otherwise, it wouldn't have the gravity to hold together.
I mean, it's funny because it seems like it flips to the exact opposite direction in my mind. At least it's like it has no mass.
Exactly. You're
right. It reminds me of quartz, because quartz goes at some unbelievable oscillation per minute. It's like 760,000 oscillations per second or something like that. So what's to say that the pulsars aren't sort of oscillating crystalline? That are just resonant that fast? I mean, how is that?
Believe it or not, that's not something that's it's not necessarily required because of you can make an oscillator in just an electric circuit. But you're absolutely right that an oscillator is usually a crystal. So there's nothing. What you say there is well, that on Earth, obviously, but there's also a very simple circuit that does a very similar thing. But we use crystals now because they're even better than making these, what they're called, resonance circuits. We used to use resonance circuits to make like a radio back in the day. Just turn it on and then it would just go wah, 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 wah. It would vibrate, but you couldn't time it perfectly. You'd have to, how like old radios would start sliding off tune? Well, that's the kind of thing that would cause that, because those electrical oscillations are not perfect. But you can, in a crystal, like you said, it goes at exactly 732,000 times. Yes, done. And that's how much it will go. You can set your watch to it, type of thing, So
that's what they use to set what they do.
That they do set watches to it. That's what I mean. There you go.
As a matter of fact.
As a matter of fact. But anyway.
Well, so that's wondering so they aren't. Why aren't how do we know they aren't crystal stars?
We don't, to be perfectly honest. But there's nothing. But there's
because they're clearly quasars with neutron sectors that are supermassive. Clearly. But we don't really know even how big they are, what they're made of. The only thing is that because of these glitches and other things like that, and because of the supernaturalness that needs to be invoked with neutron stars, which of course leads to black hole theory, none of this is required. But anyway, I was trying to use this as an example of how someone will provide you with a little tiny obscure piece of information like pulsars can glitch, like they glitch. It's even called glitching, and they're supposed to be lighthouses. And how do you stop a rotating mass traveling at 30,000 times a second, make it stop rotation, and immediately speed up to the exact same speed within, let's say, 0.012 milliseconds? It would be great I would love to see the data on that.
They just ignore it.
They
just sweep it under the rug.
Can you get it?
Of course, it's even in the fucking Wikipedia.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Just look it up right now. It's called glitching pulsars.
Yeah.
Type in that and you'll find it. And that's what I mean by something that is hidden. It's like the fingers of God problem we talked about the other day, where it's like, what do you mean? Like, you mean quasars are lined up in a line away from the Earth? Yep. Like how? How can the Earth be the center of, because we obviously redshift does not equal distance, but if redshift does equal distance, right there. Don't pictures. They won't show you pictures of, I guess there's a glitch, a couple glitches you see. It should be the pulses should be straight along that line, but they're noticing that they move. They're not perfect. See what I mean? And that's what I mean by electrical oscillations not being absolutely perfect. Very close. But anyway, you want to see the description will tell you what they're doing. These are just data points, like I said. So.
Yeah.
Recovery from glitches, see?
It's pretty periodic.
Wow. Well, of course. But it's not...
What do you mean, of course?
It's not exact.
I mean, a glitch, yeah, but a glitch is not... A glitch kind of implies non-periodicity.
This is not... You're not understanding, I don't think. And I'm not trying to be rude about that.
Okay. All right. This is periodic, right?
Yeah, but...
You understand, like, the implication of the word glitch, right?
Well, yeah, but one of those is a glitch. One of those, they're saying there's a glitch somewhere in this pulsar. Like, not, these are periods, but then there's a glitch. I'm not sure.
Like here?
Yeah, but look how long they go between glitches. See, like, years. So, anyway, if you go back to the
so it goes down and then pop and then down and then pop.
Yeah, but that's over years. That's the time
it's reaching. This is a critical situation right here.
Well, yeah, it's when
if you look at if you look at these things, like there's some situation that happens right there. This is like a QRS signal that you're familiar with from looking at heartbeats, right? It has the heartbeat thing.
Actually, that did not escape me.
Right.
The cool thing is that basically the rotation speed, change in speed, seems to go up to a certain point, glitch, and then slowly come down till it hits another threshold, glitch,
right.
Threshold, glitch, and this is over periods of years.
See, I would call that a spike. I would call that a spike versus a glitch.
Right, but they
just because I'm into playing with words, as you know.
Okay, sure.
Fine.
But if you go down, if you go back to the Wikipedia, the actual description will tell you like that basically they just, according to them, they just stop rotating and then continue. And this is the thing, like they just stop at a certain point and then they would just get back to normal. Now, this type of effect is something electrically happens. Like that's obviously, as you mentioned, heartbeats. But let's imagine you have two capacitors. One of them is they're asymmetrical, and it starts building up on one, but the charge on the other one keeps slowly building over time. And then once it hits a certain critical point, it no longer passes its information down. It drops, it crashes, and the cycle continues. But this is also, but like I said, this thing's spinning, 10 to the minus 15 hertz. So it's spinning like so many times a second, or no, wait.
Yeah. No, this is right. I mean, it's let's see. Yeah. Okay. It's pretty radical.
Yeah, but they shouldn't, because they're supposed to be lighthouses that are spinning. So they think that these things are rotating, and then suddenly they stop rotating, and then they will slowly pick back up, type of thing. And they're like, how does that happen? How do you stop a mass that's supposed to be like 12 gazillion tons and just stop it instantly? And then, it's just it's a falsification of their theory. But like I said, they'll study it, but they won't report it. Like, it's not something they tell people.
Right.
Because it invalidates their theory, so.
Right.
But like I said, in the wiki,
it's a good word. I mean, there's part of the word that's good, right?
Well, it's a glitch in their theory, is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But if you look at what that's said on Wikipedia, you can see that it just says basically they spin, and then they suddenly stop, and then they start spin. But some of them can be stopping and starting within, like I said, milliseconds, and there's just nothing that can do that. I mean, not at that mass anyway. I mean,
yeah.
Because their theory says that it must be one heavy thing, because obviously it's held together because it's spinning. And therefore, and if it gets so bad, then it's going to collapse into a black hole.
Oh, no.
Did you see the new picture of the Galactic Center?
No.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, my God.
Oh, tell me.
Well, just...
Tell me, Neil.
No, it's a high-def picture that they got, and it's of the entire Galactic Center. And it's the biggest one and most high-resolution one that's ever been done.
Okay.
Made with the new radio telescope in Australia or something.
Africa.
New picture. New pic.
Does it? You tell me where you see it, if you see it. Do you know where it came from?
There it is. Gizmodo, that one. The one your mouse was just on. The big bright orange one.
This one.
That one. Here I am pointing again.
Yeah.
That's just South African telescope. Thank you.
It's in the messages.
He's kind of overexposed, don't you think? I mean, that's a little bit of bloom going on there.
Well.
Yeah, he might have sent a high def version, but there's Robert did. It's in the messages there.
Oh, good. Okay.
Oh my God! But anyway, you can see the plasmoids over there, and you can see the filaments. That's the main filament running down the center, like right down in the middle of that bright spot.
Yeah.
That's where Sagittarius A is. That's the where all the spinning of all those things occur. They think Sagittarius A is right along that big filament, right in the middle, and in the brightest point of it. So that's generally where the center of the galaxy is, where that bright orb is. But in the middle of that, they think it's a black hole because you've seen all the pictures of the masses of the stars whipping around. But I think they're whipping around that column right there, just like Jim would say, that there's a column, and then we're rotating around.
It's like the model's the opposite of what it is. Right? That's what I see in it immediately.
And they actually called these things filaments. They actually said, we see these filaments, but we don't know what causes them. And you're like, dude.
We don't want to acknowledge it because we'll instantly lose all our damn funding.
Well, look at it, though.
That's why.
That is just, to imagine that is the Galactic Center, that you can see plasmoids in balls. Like, those things are not solar systems.
I'd like to see
they're bigger than that.
Yeah, I'd like to see where are there any shots? Maybe Robert's done this. Are there any shots where it shows like this is the window of what, the window from afar, and then here's our little.
Oh, I don't know. I was perusing Walt Thornhill's page, and he had actually shared it from a friend, or possibly a friend of his put it on there. But he had got that picture, and I put it out on the Electric Universe Theory page. And
okay.
Then a lot of.
I think I did too. I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that you did first. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point
is, this,
someone else did it. I mean, like I said, I took it from Wall's page.
What I like most, anyway, if you want to know how big it is, the point, like let's say where that cursor is, I can give you a general idea. The spot in the if you go look at that filament and go right to the middle of it.
This.
Yeah, and then there's a sort of go slowly down it, and I'll tell you where to stop. Stop. Go back up slightly. So there's a little bright that part right there. Okay, so that little part is generally where the center of the galaxy is. That's where all the stars are rotating. I've seen this general picture from this point of view. Now, apparently, about five to, I'd say maybe 5 or 10. Well, now that you're changing it, I have to change it too.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. All
right,
right.
I'll stop.
I'm just trying to use your cursor as a measurement. So the distance
Sure.
across your cursor to the little, actually, let me use the plus sign, that little cross that you have there. The little accent. Okay, so imagine that little cross that would be about 1 light day. So it's about, if you get an idea, because this Galactic Center, the pictures you've seen around there are only about 10 light days across. So it's a very close-up picture of the Galactic Center. This is this is a very wide-angle view. To see the whole thing would be maybe I'd say light months. It's not. Mm-hmm. That's not even a light year across this whole picture. Basically.
Right.
So it's quite compact. Like we have 4 light years between us and the nearest star.
We might be able to do this. Hold on 1 second. Just get we'll do Galactic Center, and then we'll have some reference.
Yeah, actually, there's a picture with a measurement in the corner. You'll get an idea. That's where I picked it up at, because somebody said it was like, here is a little line. It said, this is 10 light days, and I was like, oh, okay, because that's how I figured it out.
Guys, it looks so much like a how do you say the word? It's like an armillary. How do you say that word? They're the circle inside the circle inside the circle is like a sphere. An armillary. Is that how you say them?
Oh yeah. That globe with all the yeah. I'll get that one too. Yeah.
Because it's very looks a lot like that to me. Yeah, armillary sphere.
Yeah, that's classic, right?
Oh, okay.
Seen forever. Yeah, no, I mean this is a really interesting model to play with, particularly from.
I honestly didn't know.
Looking at how we look at rotations. This is because bringing up you get gimbal lock with our model. By the way, our standard model of doing rotations, we have a thing called gimbal lock that happens. So the math breaks down on it. By the way, I don't know if you know that.
I've heard that there's some problems with the clock-like motion idea, because it should technically fall apart, but it doesn't. And what's the self-correcting mechanism? Yada yada. Toot toot. So
the axes, once the axes get aligned in parallel, the whole thing breaks. So one.
Hey guys, I gotta get going. I'll see you later.
Cool, man.
All right, dude.
All right. See you on Tuesday.
Definitely.
Have a good week.
All right.
So there's
So this is the full big shot, right?
That's even further away, I'm sure.
Yeah. So just to get back, so we're looking right here, right, with this. Right?
Yeah, it would be like just the bright spot in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing, you can see the because this is less than a light year across, so you can imagine how much room the sun has to play with in its electrical domain. These things are like each star is crushed down, and so you can see the whole heliopause. Like that bright spot off to the side there, pick to the left. You see those blobs over to the left. No, that's right. Left.
No, sorry. What's your left? It's looking at me, right? Sorry.
Anyway, just sort of pull it over
those.
there, and off to the side you'll see more blobs. Yeah, there.
Okay.
See the one with the
cloud. Oh.
Yeah, the big one over the side, further over, like right up to the edge. See that big?
Huge more.
Yeah, that one with the white dot in the middle. All right, so that's right in the middle of that is a star, okay, like the sun or whatever. But remember how small this is. That's way smaller than, like, that whole distance across is only a few light days. So that's the entirety of a solar system, right there. Like, you're looking at it. The whole solar system is glowing.
Look at this filamentary, like winding around the thing.
Well, this is what I mean. Like, we can actually see a solar system, and that means that the inside is glowing so bright, that star is glowing so bright that it's larger than the star should be. I mean, so this means that it must have so many huge tufts coming off of this star. So this star is under incredible electrical stress. And you can see the almost sapphire-like shells, if you get my meaning. Yeah. Like, it's just, whew.
That's why it's plasmoid.
Well, that's what I mean. This plasmoid is probably stuck just like a piece of dust accumulates, makes a snowflake around it. You know, like it's just a little tiny piece of material, but it's enough of a focus to create all of that crap around it because it creates an electric field and so forth.
Uh-huh. Do they? I mean, over time, if you were to take, take this every day, right?
Would you see it morphing and changing?
Would you see all these change pretty, or is it? I'm wondering what the time frame kind of.
I bet you if we could see a picture like this, like 50 years from now, if we took a picture of this detail every single day,
it'd be totally different.
It would look like an undulating, writhing mass.
Yeah,
is what it would look like. Like these things,
frequency is
These currents would be whistling, like they'd be wobbling and stuff, and they'd be trying to mostly stay in their same because they're currents, right? But there's going to be movement. Obviously, this whole thing is just under incredible stress, and some of these should be popping up and disappearing like little balls because the star inside cannot take the stress. They get too much stress. Another current jumps over, and they explode into pieces, blowing material everywhere. That could be what's going on in some of these, and some of them are being born, some of them are being destroyed. It's a lot of probably, I mean, it's not like you can take that kind of stress. It's just, I mean, stars eventually will go, nope, I can't handle this, I'm going to explode. Okay.
Right. And then eventually reassemble.
And yes, exactly. That's exactly what you're...
But that's the cycle, right? It's like the compacting and then the expansion.
Well, they get drawn in
versus just the expansion from a nuclear center that's highly massive.
Right. I mean, even if we get even 1/10 the distance close to that, I'm sure the stress would be incredible. Like, that's just an incredible amount of stress. Is it just me, or are you seeing a disk?
I'm seeing all kinds of. I'm seeing several discs. I've got this open in Pixar right now, just like Dave's doing in here, and I've got it open on mine too because I'm playing with the levels in it to try to bring out more contrast and definition between each of these things. And I'll post those up for you guys in a few minutes because I'm working on it. But it's incredible.
I could see some of the feathering off to the side and everything. Like, for example, Dave, and I just wanted to see if you're seeing this, Heather. Okay, so right at the corner. Stop.
Sorry, you guys inspired me.
Please do in a second. But over to the right side, right at the corner. No, don't move it. Don't move it.
Oh, okay.
Right now, at the furthest right, you see how it sort of go up slightly. Yeah. Right there. Right. Stop.
Yeah.
Not there. Over slightly more. Slightly. No. Right to the edge. Right to the edge. Right to the edge. Right. Stop. Go down slightly. Down slightly. Stop. Okay. So, to me, I'm looking at this from the side, and I see two lines coming out from where your cursor is. One of them is going down slightly, and one's going up slightly. And the one that's going down slightly is sort of going around and down along this thing over to the bright thing over to the other side. So I picture a disc, basically, and I'm seeing a disc going out behind this plasmoid, out around and back to your cursor. And that disk goes all the way over to that other star that we're talking about on the other side on the left.
Oh,
so
all
the way. Well, over to go to where that star was, the one we were talking about before with the bright center. Yeah, there. Goes down slightly. Down, a little bit. Stop. Over, up, and then up, stop, and go over slightly to the right. Just a little start right there.
That one.
So that right there, from that point, to me, is a disk. I'm seeing a disk there. Is anyone else seeing that?
I see it. Yes, I do.
Okay.
I see it.
So I think that I'm looking at the center of the galaxy, and there's so much stress that there is literally a ring around this whole thing. So that's the magnetic neutral point, is what I'm thinking.
But it looks like it's going both. It's making a cross. There's a horizontal and a vertical one there, and then there's other ones coming out the diagonals.
I see some of those too. Yes.
How do you say? It looked like one of those spheres.
So I see like a flat disk that I'm looking at from the side. So I'm just looking out across the top of it, and I see a current going down the middle where it should, and then I see all these wisps coming off. So this is, and of course you see it a lot more on the right, but you can see where there's some coming up and going up and to the right, and there's some that's going more south or down, and it's like a feathering coming off this thing. There's not just those. I mean, in between those, there's just tons of little feathers that are coming off of the darn thing.
Mm-hmm. Like it's JPEGing out.
I know you have to sort of zoom out to get a better picture. See what I mean? Like how it looks like there's feathers around it. Anyway, so I see this. I see that disc, and I see this. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't interrupt you. This is adding.
Oh, please do though, because it's just. I mean, this is I would rather have an artist's interpretation.
Oh, I just thought they looked like sprites. You know how the sprites come up off the top of the cloud.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes, and there's a disc that's sort of like the pinch that sort of holds the neck together, and I can picture a large current coming down. This is sort of where it's pinching together, and it starts spreading out down along the bottom. And again, so we're seeing the whole thing like an hourglass shape, but the galactic center. And we would probably look better if we could get the dust out of the way. But this is a radio telescope view. Because it's so occluded there, you can't even see. I mean, we can't see anything there. There's so much dust between us and the Galactic Center. So we can only see it through radio waves that can get through that, I guess. So that's why it's all orange, because we have no idea what the color would be.
Yeah. I mean, I've been this week. It's like vortice city, so it's like I'm seeing. It might be the, that syndrome where. Once you have a tool, once you get the hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? But it's like you see those vortex action pretty clearly.
Yes, indeed.
Right, and then you see, and then you get these kind of knotish kind of things going on that you see all over the place in plasmas, and see it here.
I can picture a small
this
piece
kind
of material
spinning up.
Oh
here,
yeah, you can see spirals in that one. Like you can see the twist.
It looks to me. It looks like they go opposite. I shared, with Heather and Richard. Richard and I and Heather met yesterday for a little bit. We got a little overview of his perspective on the Bath conference. And we were talking about this very very thing and some of the things that I've kind of stumbled upon about vortices and rotations, etc., and meander patterns. So. And you see it right here. So that Markland convection stuff.
I think that's just me. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because it's just so pretty.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, awesome. I can segue into this. So.
Well, it's just, they painted such a great picture, and considering how, like I said, it's like almost a direct falsification of their theory straight up. It's like, there's giant filaments and everything and globular stuff going on in the Galactic Center. Why are there filaments? No idea. Not in our theory.
They're right.
Just to guess,
Yeah, don't ask questions. Please move along.
Yeah. And it's pictures like I said, I don't have a problem with their data. I have a problem with their interpretation of their data. Because I love the fact that they go, like Richard said, yeah, go ahead, spend billions of dollars and get this really fancy telescope, and we will gladly use your data on you.
Right.
Because your guys are going to spend the money. We can't make our own instruments, but we're not going to stop using your data.
Right. Just playing around with spatial frequency here, but you see this. You've seen this all the time in the, plasma. Just as a basic look at a fundamental thing that happens is just winding and unwinding. Basically, and I'm seeing this pattern a lot. You kind of see it. You see it pretty clearly.
I played
here.
with old telephone cords myself, so I know what you're talking.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that.
That little thing at the bottom that twists and does that thing that goes the wrong way. That drives me absolutely batty.
It's just a totally obnoxious. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's like you would sit there after, like, the phone cord would be so twisted that you would go and sit there at the kitchen table. No one's there. Like, your mother's left, but they won't ever untwist this cord. It's twisted so tight and 3 times over, so you take it off the wall and then you learn which way it has to go, and you sit there for about 15 minutes untwisting the whole thing.
Right.
Right. And then your parents come along the next day and ruin it because your OCD demands that it be fixed.
Right.
OCD demands it be fixed.
But to me, that twist, it's like once again, it's lowest energy configuration, and you see this dynamic of seeking that. It twists too far one way, and then it twists the other way, right? And this is the geometry that happens, right? I mean, I would like to like conflict with someone saying, "Oh, David, you're totally wrong," because it'd be interesting to see another perspective.
Well, what I like most is the way you can see them popping. When some of the currents twist around and they touch back on each other, it's like a solar prominence where they're coming back and they're twisting, and then you could see how it's like a loop, right? And then suddenly it disappears. But if we could really slow it down, we would see this is where energy is actually being expressed. Things will occur there at those points because they're popping and changing direction. Because there's obviously a magnetic moment change where you're sitting there with a tube, and then suddenly it's like, oh, this is a much better connection, like a river, and it just oxbows, I guess it's called. We were looking at those before.
Right.
Did you see the?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask.
If you think, okay, go. After Chippendale. No, after you.
After you, sir.
Yeah, please, after you.
It's
my pleasure.
Did you see the experiment with the? I just recently looked at this too. The experiment with the plastic bag and salt crystals in space in microgravity.
No.
They found that they can mix a bunch of salt together, but if it's in microgravity, they begin to form patterns like within 10 seconds. Like microgravity crystal growth. There you go. Try that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Go for images or something. Yeah, I'm all wondering now. Oh, wasn't really growth. It was more like conglomeration or aggregation or something like that. I'm not even sure how to spell it though. Aggregation. Yeah, just guess. We'll go with it.
Yeah.
There it is. The first one over the upper. Yeah. Yeah, they put it in a plastic bag and they were in space, and they put basically NaCl, salt. You can just say salt, in a polyurethane bag, and just starts making shapes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's a video for that or something. But...
Clumping.
Yeah, but they don't know why it does that. But of course, electrically speaking, you have ions in the water, and you begin to understand what easy water does, and this becomes almost understandable.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because each of those things are creating each salt crystal. Therefore, I can almost tell what Jared Pollock would say. Each salt crystal is creating. It has a little sheath around it, and of course, it creates that easy water around it. So you have a positive and then a negative around it, and then these are likes, and they start conglomerating into clumps, like a cloud would. You know what I mean?
Right. Gerald Pollock was at that the other conference, the one in Idaho.
I did not know that.
It's kind of interesting. I just found out.
Yeah, I saw that when you said that, and that Eric Dollard was there. That would have been an amazing.
and Ken Wheeler.
Yeah, I know, right?
So, right.
My God.
So that's the other side. the other team.
Well, no, they're
I like what they're. I mean, it's very interesting the nuances of like these kind of talking about clumping, right? It's kind of there's a clumping going on with that, right?
Well, I'll reserve judgment on Ken until I can chat with him.
But I mean, the humor in it is it's all his brilliance, and it's like you got to turn that off for me. As you know,
I don't think I can handle it either.
It's like I'm the discoverer of this, and it's like, but once again, pointing in the same direction.
No, and it is fine. But I remember we were sitting here having an argument, and someone took those things that you showed me, where he had the wonderful phi ratio inside of the magnetic field. Okay,
right.
And I was like, okay, and then someone else pointed it out for me, and someone else commented and said, "No, you're wrong." And I was like, "No, she's not fucking wrong." Basically, she was saying, look, he's using a magnetic fluid, and these things are lining up along these magnetic field lines, but these lines are not really there. These are gradients, and they're created by magnetic particles forming little magnets inside of the magnetic field of that magnet, and then they are going to go and create a chain, basically, and this chain is what you're seeing. And it is a spiral. Yes, we're no longer arguing with that. But the field itself is not the magnets that are being shown in the picture. You know what I mean? That's a fluid. It's magnetizing particles. The particles are lining up. That's what allows you to see lines. That they're not physically there. But he's showing something interesting, like you mentioned, the phi ratio, the spiral of the magnetic field. I love that part.
It has to do with geometry, ultimately.
Well,
fundamental three-dimensional geometry. That's what it starts getting into.
I will to you. It does. But
that's
for
why
me,
I'm
fine
compelled
with.
by it.
I'm not necessarily compelled, but I find it very fascinating that he managed to do a 3D shape to it. To me, that's very interesting. But it's not. I'm pretty sure that someone's done that before, is what I'm saying. I mean, many years ago, I'm sure. Like some guy with a handlebar mustache and, one of those inventor caps or something. Like, that's how long ago I'm sure that people have done this. But it doesn't mean, though, that I want to disclude anything. But, I mean, you're right. There's a part of me that goes, wow, you are so full of yourself.
But it shows this thing. I mean, you can see it in this as well. It's this certainly this. I mean, we talk about it all the time, but it continues to give and give. But it's like this vortex action with a spatial. There's a spatial frequency of things.
Well, it's actually not a vortex because it's not moving. I just mean it has that shape. I'm not denying that.
It's rotational around an axis.
Well, yeah, but it's not moving.
And
like if the magnet moved, it would be moving. But if you put just in the Ken Wheeler sense, if you put the magnet in the center and then you have the fluid on the top and bottom, you can see the shape. But magnetic fields are not a flow of anything. They're just
this is where
field.
You think about it as a standing wave.
Well, yeah, but it's not quite that either.
This is constructive interference. The nature of constructive interference. This is where this is the message I'm getting personally.
I know that there's actual things inside the magnet, and these things inside the magnet are atoms, and that these atoms themselves are set up in such a way that they're creating a spiral inside of.
Are they particulate?
Iron atoms or whatever, neodymium atoms?
Atoms, period.
Well, I'll go with Ito on his opinion on those.
I talked to him about this very issue last night.
Well, no, I mean, the thing, but we talked about the staticness of anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is that there's
it doesn't matter.
Well, I'll go into it with you.
It's all about matter.
I don't want to lose my train of thought, you bastard. But anyway, you got. I'm
telling you gotta watch that one.
There's a spiral inside of that is because that's how electric fields. You have the spiral and electric field or electric current that will make a magnetic field. So that's what's happening inside that magnet. So there's a even though it's just electrons moving around, they're creating a spiral, and the spiral is creating a magnetic field. So that's great, no problem. But that field is static. The electrons are moving, not the field. Now, if but it will respond to the field, obviously, if you move another magnet into it.
What's an electron?
An electric charge is spiraling.
Is it a particle?
No, I don't think so, no.
I mean, it's fundamental.
Right, but in the macro sense, it doesn't matter. Because once
it does matter. It's all about matter.
No. What I meant is that once you see, I'm not a nuclear guy. I don't go into that realm as much as Ito. Ito lives there. I live in generally a macro world.
So you don't want to explore the trivium and quadrivium?
No, I will gladly do that. All I meant is that I don't want to lose my train of thought. So the spiral that is created, if you just use an electromagnet and did the same thing. So let's say he just put a spiral inside there and gave it a core or whatever, and then applied electric current. It will do the same thing as that magnet did, right? So, but probably it's because this current is going around creating the spiral. The spiral creates a loop. This loop, of course, has the right angle to it. The right angle, of course, therefore creates these continuing loops up this chain of spirals, basically, Ampere's law, and then will create a larger field based off the smaller fields that are being stacked up along that wire. So, in that sense, then, if you want a stronger magnet, you want more loops, basically. Or if it's a permanent magnet, you want better alignment of these things to continue that spiral. Anyway, the point is...
Why do we get all these jaggy shapes, lines here? It seems like the model that you present, it should be they should be fairly straight.
Well, no, they're reacting with each other. Because there's probably number one. There's probably not that many lines in there because there's probably so many dancing that the camera's picking up many, but it's probably like just 2 or 3, maybe 4 lines. But they're reacting off of each other because they have as they go down, they create a magnetic field. The current creates a magnetic field which reacts with other magnetic fields and then begins to twist left or twist right, and then they start spiraling, but they can't because there's another one over there that's interacting with them, and this is what you're looking at. There's a general flow.
Can you see recursive vortices?
Personally, I think it's kind of weird that he's using such high gas.
He's changing pressure. That's basically. I mean, this is the whole this video, which I've been enjoying over the last.
Lower the pressure and get that thing into a globe.
Change the pressure, and then you start seeing the frequency. You see the shape. The spatial frequency is a function of pressure, and that's very interesting.
He's in arc mode right now, and you can almost tell on the VI curve that we show, like where he's at. If you get my meaning, like where are you at on this curve? But you can see where they change shape because the gas, like you said, we were talking about this with the Sapphire project. You change the pressure, you change everything.
Frequency. You change the spatial frequency.
Well, the electricity still has to get from point A to point B because it's drawn there. But the path it takes, if it goes into arc mode, is different than the path it takes if it's in glow mode and so on. And if you can get it really diffuse, it turns into dark mode. Right now, that's just arc mode stuff, or it seems to be at the moment anyway. So.
Okay.
It's still awesome.
So Heather did some cool stuff with the Mars. Could you talk a little? I'll see if I can bring it up here, Heather. There's really, really cool shots.
Well, while you're looking at that, I'll just finish my thing. Basically, long story short, they're not. What he's saying when he sees this spiral is I just think that he's took a few logical shortcuts. That's all, and he's inferring where. But it's not like he's wrong in what he's seeing. I think he's just slightly wrong in his interpretation. Maybe that's the same thing with Eric Dollard. The thing with Eric Dollard I don't like I said, is just his little. It's like why are you using these weird words to prevent me, an electrical engineer, from understanding what the frack you're talking about? Because I want to build what you're talking about, but you seem to be playing to a different audience.
Because the models. I mean, this is my position at this point, which I'll stand on for a while until it's broken. But it's like the model is wrong because it doesn't match how life is, and life is clearly electrical.
Well, I can't argue with that. I think what I meant was...
That's my starting point.
I want to see this, but I just meant that Eric Dollard has like I said, I listened to him and that I got to the point. I'm like, why aren't you finishing this? Like, there's a part where you could finish this, like an electrical presentation, like where you follow you just sit up and go, okay, the electricity here is at 5 volts. You can go through the whole thing, and I can tell you at each point along that diagram, the schematic, what the voltage is and everything, and I can show you what's happening and why the op amp's doing this and why the BJT is doing this, and so on, so on. And he could do that because he's not an idiot, is what I mean. But he sort of glosses over things that prevents me from understanding, and maybe I'm just resentful of that. Perhaps I don't know.
He's pointing at something that's in direct conflict with how the mainstream views it.
True, but he also talks about things like Ken Wheeler does, which this whole and I guess what the other counter space and other things like that. And I was like, dude, you don't need multiple dimensions. I don't think. I don't think.
Well, this is what is this thing that happens with spatial frequency that I'm seeing. So anyway,
show this stuff.
This is worthy definitely of further exploration.
I agree.
But yeah, Heather, we're just bloviating as usual.
You're fine. You're absolutely fine. Because I was making something similar. I was trying to do like something similar with the Okay, look at the synchronicities here. Oh no, look at the synchronicities.
Look at them. Oh, they're gonna go.
Okay, except that I'm looking at my own screen, so that's why I thought, I was like, no shit, you have the same thing up on your screen that I just had on mine, but I had.
Right.
Because I was making one like this for that I did for the Mars storm, and I was trying to make one like that for the center of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Oh, is this Mars?
This is a dust storm on Mars. It's a photo I took with my phone in my backyard the other night. And then I zoomed in, and then I ran it through a series of, I played with the contrast.
Like through a telescope?
No, with my cell phone.
Your phone took a picture of Mars?
Yes. My phone took a picture of Mars, and when so if you go back to the beginning of it, the first ones, you can see it's very dim shot, but there's light, there's differentiation, like you can see the light, the shadow. So I wanted to see, I play with them sometimes, these pictures, so I wanted to see that's the picture. It's just a little dot. And I was like, oh, it looks like a sphere. So let me see if I can pull some of that out. And then I realized that there's a lot of detail hidden in there. So I started running it through these filters to see how the filters responded to the light change. And this is what happened. It brought out all of this.
So, I mean, this is a fascinating thing about the insights gained through playing with filters,
Mm-hmm.
Because clearly high, the luminance in it, even, it's always like we tend to go, oh, it's not high enough resolution. It's like you can't get any information out of it. It's like that's wrong. This is a sum of things, and it actually may be showing more information because of the low resolution.
I need to buy you a telescope, Heather.
I just buy me a
great.
Because if I could take that picture with my phone, could you imagine? This one's my favorite. Wait, go back. And then the embossing ones. So, and this one looks really...
Tell me that one?
This one is my favorite, but I think it was the next... because of all these levels. And then I also noticed this little moon that shows up in them, too. And it's like, is that... See right here? Okay, so the embossing. And it gives you the... like the three-dimensional aspects, like what would that look like if it was just pressed? Like a topographical, a very easy topographical. But the way that it was just picking this up, and then there's this dust storm on it. So if you go a little bit further, there's a couple of them that look like Richard said. He was like, oh my God, it looks like a Birkeland current, like a head-on hit, like the counter rotation.
And then he was talking about that head-on hit too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interrupting. So.
No, that's fine. Please interrupt, because I was looking at it as this dust storm, right? But maybe the dust storm is the physical, like let's say the physical, but what we can see of the Birkeland current, like, you know, all of this dust got brought up through this current that's hitting Mars right now and creating this storm. I didn't think of it like as a, you know, the current just smacking Mars. And then when he said that, I was like, oh yeah, that maybe. So, but all I know is that when I pulled these out, this is what was coming through for them, and it was amazing, the depth.
I also love the fact that we know more about, like we could predict when the dust storms are going to happen, and they can't. It's like, yeah, it's antinodal and nodal. Like, why? Because Earth obviously affects Mars, dumbass. You know, like, you almost want to say it like that, but
these are great.
Because I think we're opposite to Mars right now, aren't we? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
what's the orientation situation right now?
We're opposites.
From
we're on the opposite side of it, directly opposite. The sun is between us. And they got a dust storm. That's interesting.
Massive dust.
Well, planet-wide, yeah. And it also happens when our tail brushes it. When our tail goes across, and so basically, it may not be when our tail now. It might just be when our we get close to it. It's now at the other side. We're now closest to it to cause this dust storm. So,
right. So what is this occlusion situation? What? It's an occlusion. It's an occlusion of the sun, right?
It's an occultation of us from I guess nothing is occulted because we're too little. But it's like when we get in between, we're going to get in between, or we're in between the sun and Mars right now.
Yeah, but we don't have to look. We don't have to look directly at the sun. I mean, if you just off to the side, you can go right through it. I mean, with just regular light. So it's not like there's reflection of atmosphere too much anyway. So, I mean, there was air to reflect all the light. Yeah, it should be pretty bright, but since there's no air, just off to one side, it'll be fine. It's a vacuum. Yeah. Still weird.
Yeah. So the recent crop circling, pretty cool, right?
God, I want to make one of those so bad.
Crazy.
Well, we have like, there's this farmland up where I'm from, right? And as you've seen, it would just be awesome one day to just get you guys to come up here, okay? And we'll all hang out, you know, and do a lot of stuff and have a great time. And then we'll just sneak onto somebody's farm. Fully fledged adults, a bunch of Americans go onto someone's farm. Just hay, don't worry, nothing big. And we'll make a crop circle right there. Like, we'll plan it out, you know, and get the thing, and we'll make a beautiful, well, maybe not beautiful, even maybe a simple design, something that looks that you think, oh, this could have been natural, or this could have been made by aliens, as opposed to something that's just a beautiful pattern.
You don't want to do this one?
Well, it looks a little made by people.
For a first timer, might be a little challenging.
Might be a little challenging for a first timer.
Challenging for a first timer, yeah.
But anyway, go and pull something like that off, right? And because you can see how they made it, they're very beautiful. Like, you can see the footprints almost and how they made it, like it's in squares as opposed to the general roundingness that you would see from a normal circle. Anyway, It doesn't matter. The point is that we could do something like that.
What kind of crazy druids do this?
Huh?
It's got to be. The motivation. It's
art.
It's
renegade art.
But it's radical. It's a radical expression of a lot of energy. It's really beautiful and compelling, right?
Haven't you seen the video? There's a video of them making one. Like a bunch. They contacted somebody and they were like, a group said, yeah, we do this all the time. We fake these, you know, and people believe us. Yeah. But it's like, well, prove it. How do you do it? And he goes, let me show you. So they go to a field and they got a crane, and the crane had a camera on it. So this thing is like, you know, 30 or 40 feet in the air, and it's looking down And it's a documentary, and they show you how they do it, how they lay out the pattern, and it's fairly quick. They can get the whole thing done in like 2 hours.
I bet you could make, like Roombas. You know what a Roomba is?
Like something that attacks cats.
No, it's vacuum cleaner for your house. You could make one that would do this kind of stuff, right?
Okay, now you.
I mean, you make one like on a agro scale.
We'll get Billy Elverton to help us because he made a lawnmower.
I mean, you can actually do that, right? Yeah. I mean, it's not that hard. There's a patent for it.
Actually,
right?
I think you wouldn't even need to do that because I'm pretty sure.
I mean, it seems the way these look, it
now.
looks like that's how they're done ultimately.
Well, no, they're made by people.
It's a lot of measurement.
Well, yeah, they lay down some lines first, right? And they get the full outside of it by putting a post in the middle, right in the very center of this thing, and then they make the circle, and then they have these points every so many degrees, and then they would use string. Basically, is how you would line it out, and then. And that's basically what they did. So you can see that there's a lot of string points where they must have made the pentagram inside of the circle. And then once they did that, they started connecting these points together, and they connected more points, and so on and so on. Then they created so many points along one side, and then made it go to so many points along the other side, and voila, now don't screw up though, and they say they do that sometimes where they lose track of what they're doing and go, well, the pattern's changed, and they try to repair it on the fly, right?
But they do it in like one night. Right?
Oh, yeah. They do it a lot faster than you think, because what they do is they put a board with a rope, okay? Like a 2x6 that's about maybe 6 feet wide, maybe 8, okay? And they put a rope on it. That rope goes up and behind your neck, okay, and down to the other side. And they use 2 hands, and they put the 1 foot on the board, and they just take 1 step forward, 1 step forward, 1 step forward, 1 step forward, and that's what they do.
Mm-hmm. Just push it down.
Just push it down, yeah. And you can even see it almost, I think, in some, like off on the to the left side there, like just where one of the circles, one of the edges of the circle. You see how there's an edge where he's gone around, and you can almost see how it's been pushed down in one direction. But these other parts in the middle have lines in them, and that's the footprint of the guy and his board, and he's going in straight lines.
They do a spinner here.
Well, there's some of them. Yeah, you see how someone inside one of those pentagrams actually just walked around in a circle.
Vortex action again.
Vortex action of people's feet.
people being vortices.
But anyway, yeah, go ahead and watch that video sometime.
Yeah.
I think it's called. Just look up BBC documentary or a British or BBC documentary making a crop circle or something, and I'm sure it'll pop up. Let's see if I can locate it. Let's see if I can find something that will search it all up. Making a crop circle. Because it was just amazing to watch them go.
Yeah.
Yeah, circle makers time lapse.
It's interesting that they put some out just recently,
Oh, good. Yeah.
That those were, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, there's part of me that, this is it. Okay, so look up, it's only 4 minutes and 13 seconds. So look up Circle Makers Time Lapse Crop Circle.
Sure.
And it will be on YouTube, of course. Yeah. And you can see they have a camera, and they'll show you a time lapse of them making it. And it only takes 4 minutes, so we can be amazed at what they do.
Yeah, cool.
There it is. That's the exact one I'm looking at. Okay.
Okay.
So it's 12:07 a.m. Excellent. Well, that's what it says on mine.
Nice,
so, all right. So they put a camera on it. And this is them. See, they marked out the circle.
11:32.
Well, it was 12:07 on my screen, but anyway. Then you can see how fast they work. See, they make the circles first.
These are like ants doing this.
Yeah, see how they see how there it is. That's how fast they can make it. And like you said, once you get that
how many
foot
are
with
there?
that board,
How many people are there?
I looks right there to be about maybe 7, I'm guessing. And you can see them walking up they walk up those tire tracks so no one can see their feet. But look how fast they can do it up. Like that, look how wide just one board was. And one board width. So they have actually 8-foot boards and do it real quick. See? Doesn't even take what? You can look at some of the time. It doesn't take minutes to do that.
I'm compelled by the drawing board and how they lay it out.
I have no idea how they laid it out.
Here's the recipe of how to get this thing, so precise.
But like you see, I mean, this is just beautiful renegade art.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
Here we go, getting a bit faster. But yeah, so I guess they did the whole thing in 2 hours? But you can see just that first row, just that first going around. You see how big their brush was? It doesn't take, seconds to make that. I wouldn't say seconds, but you know what I mean? Those are, just wide boards and a little bit of time. And okay, so it's 3:31, so it took them longer than I thought. But
still, it's every day. Yeah.
One night of work. I don't need to see it again. But anyway,
yeah, me too.
You see what I?
Yeah. But I mean, I want to see they have to have some type of paper that they're referencing.
Oh God, yes.
It's
I'm
the measurement. The measurement that part is intriguing. Right?
And how they planned it,
yeah. And
put a Mandelbrot right in the middle.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see this same thing. By the way, is very similar with circles, stone circles, and because some of them they were like, how did they make this pattern? And then somebody who's a blooming genius comes along, and because you're looking at it with a camera and electronics, and you're trying to figure out how they did it, and you can't figure out how smart they were, and then you see some guy comes along, because I've seen this before on one of the shows, and he was like, how do you make this? And he goes, oh, let me show you. He walked over, got 2 sticks and a piece of rope, and was like, what? And he went nailed it in the ground, and then he put the things, and he basically said, yeah, this is a 3-point link, and then you put a rope around the whole thing, and let me show you what it looks like when you're done drawing it. And he just stays with the rope, and the rope marked out the path because of the way that he laid out the sticks. And I was like, God, that's brilliant. So all you need to make this pattern is just sticks and a piece of string. Yep. And this is where these stones were laid out. You could see how it must have been done that way. It was just so obvious.
Did you anybody see that there's that guy who's taking pictures of these stone monuments in different kind of spectrum that is showing the energy release of them? Oh, it's on Facebook. Somebody was just posting it. I wasn't sure. Maybe Robert's gone already. But they were taking these images of the vibration of the stones themselves, and then it will accumulate so much and then release and float off the top. And they were saying that many churches and other sites sacred sites were built on top of previous stone circle sites,
right? Because
of the high energy of the area. And there was actually one, I want to say it was in France, but it could have been in Britain, that there was still stones, monoliths erected near the church. They didn't completely take them down, and the tallest stone was interfering energetically so much with the church that they put a lead cap on the top of it.
Wow,
that wouldn't surprise me. We were talking about the way that that stones would glow in the past, that they would have so much energy that they would glow, and the fact that they could contain energy, that they would build up energy and then release it. I think that's very compelling to that thesis, to that idea, and to think that you could, especially with Stonehenge and stuff, they apparently, according to myths, that the stones glowed blue, and apparently during a certain period of time at the top of the stones would glow blue. And at a certain period of time, when it stopped working, when they could no longer get it to show the blue, they put blue stones up there to represent that, but then they took them off apparently. But that type of effect, like there's whole pathways that are like that. Like in France, there's a causeway that is just filled with these things, like 70,000 stones in one row. And they're just like 5 rows wide or 10 rows wide, and just going right across the countryside all the way to the shoreline. And they're called menhirs there, I guess, menhir or something. Anyway, they have, and apparently they glowed, and I've seen people take pictures between the stones where they see blue wisps that will just appear like smoke and disappear just for moments. But they caught a few of them on camera. And I'm assuming it has something to do with a very similar effect to what you're describing.
I wish I could remember where I saw that, like who had posted that, so I could look that up for you. My kids have hijacked my phone, so I can't double act.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah. But you'll be.
But that's like your sidearm, right? Like you're talking on your computer and you're researching on your phone, or you're talking on your phone and you're researching on your computer. And I feel like I've got like an arm tied behind my back.
Crippled with that, too. Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Okay.
But it's really interesting, and then those were the places. So it's like that they were aware of this happening even further up. To say that this was happening in ancient times, and yet churches were built on these sites to the point, and stones were capped to the point of like interference energetically up until, churches weren't built until what, 1,000 years ago.
How was it interfering though? Like did they have a speaker system and the stone was interfering with it, or was it actually like causing the building to shake? I think it was probably something electronic, but it wouldn't surprise me that the stone outside would cause a problem, because
no, this is like they didn't have electricity. This isn't a speaker system. The church that it was interfering with was back in like medieval times.
Okay, there you go. So that's what I was wondering.
That's the thing, like that close recently, that close in history, these stones were still able to project a frequency enough to interfere with the building next to it. Maybe they couldn't hear, or maybe they, you know what I mean? Maybe it was
vibrating. Yeah,
exactly. So they put a cap on it. That's how they remedied that.
Well,
a lead cap.
That would make sense, because the lead would prevent the frequencies from coming out of the top of the crystals of the stone, if the stone had anything like that in it, and they would be sort of like creating a glow. And it's like, no, stop. Put a cap on top of that, because even if you can't see it, you'd still get interference from sound. You could hear like a hum, Siemens went to the Great Pyramid and he stood on top of it, and he stuck his fingers in the air. His guide actually stuck his fingers in the air, and every time he spread his fingers, you could hear different notes depending on what fingers you spread. So there was so much electricity in the air that it was humming between his fingers.
Right.
So then he took out
And it would change notes.
Yes, depending on what fingers. There's actually a picture of
spacing, once again, right? This relation with frequency and space.
Yes, definitely something in there. But this same effect actually was caught on film, unfortunately, in Nova Scotia. There was a bunch of kids that were on a shoreline, and they were hearing this sound when they stuck their fingers in the air, and it was pretty amazing. And then they all died because they got hit by lightning.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they were
it's
just
like the spider.
Right.
Just before they right on film too. Like,
oh man!
Yeah,
That's
they were.
terrible.
Well, what can you do? They were on a shoreline. They didn't understand what danger they were in, because it was like basically there was a buildup of electricity, and they happened to be the highest point in the area.
When was this?
It was. I'm not sure. They got pictures of it anyway. I'll see if I can locate them for next time. I think that either still photos, or it's one of those things I saw that was like just shortly after this photo, bad shit happened. These people are smiling and then they get hit with a suicide bomb, or whatever. And I don't know why I was watching that sort of disaster porn, but
when they filmed the Twilight Zone and then the helicopter crash, are they able to kill them? Anyway,
did that really happen?
Yeah.
A helicopter
crash?
It was like
the Twilight, yeah. Let's see. This was a long time ago.
Well, obviously I did not hear about it. So. Oh, there you go. Wow.
Yeah.
The Twilight Zone accident. Vic Morrow. I've heard of him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, this is pretty classic. You know, it's not lore. It was something highly documented. But like the two younger characters that were the significant characters in the film. It was right near the end of the filming, and they all died in this helicopter crash.
God, that's terrible. Oh, did it say someone was decapitated? Did it say that? Oh my God!
I don't know. I didn't.
Morrow and Lee were decapitated by the helicopter's main rotor blades when Chen was crushed to death by the same rotor blades.
Sorry, yeah, it's pretty gruesome.
Oh my God! Could you imagine?
Yeah.
That was
so. Anyway, sorry about that. That's pretty dark. But anyway,
yeah. Let's
what you were saying just reminded me of that.
Well, of course, yeah. But anyway, what Siemens did when he was on top of the pyramid, to get back to the electricity part, is that he put a piece of cloth inside his wine bottle to create a primitive Leyden jar, right?
Yeah,
which is basically a capacitor, and
those are awesome.
And
he stuck that in the air, and sparks started coming off of it. Okay, and the person, his guide, started freaking out. He thought he called him a witch or a magician or whatever.
That's what they used to play around with this stuff.
Well, that's what I mean. You see what I'm saying? Like, if this stuff was powerful back then, the idea of someone wielding magic, so to speak, at least enough to surprise, like with my basic knowledge. Well, I wouldn't say basic, but you know what I mean. Like with a few Leyden jars and a little bit of time and some wine. Okay, I could probably, or even salt and cardboard, I could probably make a battery. And then if I could do that, and then I could start building up charge, and then I could start discharging it and making things glow, you would think that I'm a witch back in the 1500s. Like, seriously. I'd be
I think you're a witch now.
Thank you. So,
it's very similar to like a Baghdad battery, though. I mean,
that's exactly. Yeah. It's very similar.
So just further evidence that they were probably using them as lamps.
There's some ideas there.
Yeah.
So
here's one that like they were playing around with this cathode discharge for quite a while.
Yes. Before they even understood what electron was, they were sort of experimenting with this.
They still don't understand.
Well, okay, fair enough.
That's my whatever. I'm gonna
before
go
we made the name electron. How about that? So
but I mean our exposure to it, this aftermath with the electric light bulb was way down the pathway from them playing around with plasma, right? Obviously, right?
I think
1700s, 1600s, even, right? And far further back, right?
This is the thing, though.
Gaming and creating things that did plasma discharge was happening.
Well, someone built a gas gun made for setting off. He made basically a Leyden jar that was made of glass and it looked like a gun. And this is back in the 1700s. And he figured he could shoot people with fire by going into swamps and using this because it would create a spark and then set off gases. So he thought that this could be used as a weapon. Of course, it was pointless, but still, it was very interesting.
It was exciting.
Yeah, for like, what can we do with this stuff? They're playing around, basically.
Right.
But anyway, speaking of that, Siemens, who is the guy who invented, why we have the term Siemens as and the company, I guess.
Yeah, right.
But also the what is a Siemens anyway? I can't remember now off the top of my head.
It's a measurement, but it's definitely an big engineering firm.
My brain is fried now. I can't believe I can't remember what a Siemens
is.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is that
it's charged. That's a charged term.
When I look it up, I'm going to be so offended with myself, I swear. So, because
right.
you're an engineer, you know what a Siemens is?
I would say there's electrical components there, too. By the way. So.
Anyway, his guide
I gotta go.
got in a fight with him on top of the pyramid. And he touched him with the Leyden jar. And he went flying off the edge of the pyramid.
Wow. Is the end of it?
Well, yeah, his little guy went like, whing, because, I mean, this apparently was it was fully charged from being on top of the pyramid. So the interesting thing then is the same thing as we go into the idea of St. Elmo's fire is what we're talking about, really. The effect of St. Elmo's fire is the what we call a coronal glow, which it would be in dark mode. You can hear it sometimes on a ship's masts. You can hear a humming up there, and they'll notice it, but they can't see anything. But if it's powerful enough, you can see St. Elmo's fire, and you type it in. It still happens today, but it gets less and less frequent. So it's like we're losing charge, the Earth. So if that's the case, like the St. Elmo's fire in the 1700s was a lot more frequent than St. Elmo's fire now. So, and we have metal boats now, So the question becomes, how much more powerful would it have been back then, like when they were having problems in the medieval times with a stone that was interfering with a church or what have you. That type of thing. So this is what I'm picturing. That they were. It's basically, this is all this really is, a St. Elmo's fire. To get St. Elmo's fire, though, you need to have. Normally it occurs because a ship is the tallest thing in the area, and all electrons are going to this high point on its mast, and it's dissipating into the clouds. So it's basically a connection between the water and the clouds. It's the highest point. That's why it happens. Stones are probably erected for a similar reason, but they probably need to be connected to the water table. So you need to have something down into the water table so it's moist, like a ground, but you then have a dry point. So you want the ground to be dry. So the ground is like an insulator. The stone is connected to the water below. And when any charge comes to the area, the stone will begin to glow because it's taking the electricity from the water. It can't get through the dirt, so it goes up through these stones. And this seems to be how it works. Now, I'm not 100% positive, but if I was a betting man, using what I know of electricity, that would be my interpretation.